There is no other podcast like this, so proceed with caution as we challenge your beliefs by providing the forbidden information kept away from you and your family by modern medicine, so they can keep you on the path of drugs for anything and drugs for everything. Hundreds of years of preventative medical wisdom have been dismantled by Big Pharma. We are truly in the dark ages of healing. After all, it's not just about living long, it's about living well. If your continuing search for answers has led you nowhere, you will find the truth here on the Forbidden Doctor podcast. Seek the truth with your hosts, Dr. Jack and Mary Stockwell.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jack.
And Mary.
And we are here with podcast episode 91, The Dangers of Vegan and Vegetarian Diets. Now, I want to say right up front, I have respect for the reasons that people are vegans, and I have respect for the reasons people are vegetarians. However, what we're going to discuss, the myths and truths surrounding veganism and vegetarianism.
And I just wanted to remind you, we are simultaneously recording a webinar to go along with this podcast.
Oh, yes.
So
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. So you can see slides and pictures and all kinds of cool jokes that people that are just listening in their cars can't
get to see it. They wonder why somebody walking on or sitting in their computer room at home is laughing at some of the cartoons we have on there, as opposed to just listening while they're out there jogging around.
Okay, today we're going to talk about the myths versus the truths, and I have a cute little slide here to start off with as we were speaking about this. It's called the pagan diet, and it's a combination of the vegan and paleo. I should say paleo and vegan. The pagan diet, and there's a website you can go to and learn a whole lot more about this, but we're going to be discussing it today.
Yeah, because due to books like the China Study and Forks Over Knives, more and more people are eliminating animal products from their diets.
Kind of scary.
Yes, and since there is no record of vegetarian-based societies prior to the Dark Ages, and we'll talk more about that in this podcast, we feel this is an extremely dangerous cultural happening right now. So this podcast is designed to bring out the research-based truth regarding this very controversial subject.
We want to remind you to take our free symptom survey. Go to forbiddendoctor.com and click on Take the Symptom Survey and send it in, and we'll send you back a personalized protocol just for you. I was reading through a bunch of these that our nutritionists were putting together today, and man, they are killer protocols.
Good.
Killer ones. I mean, these people that are writing in, which are now patients,
yes,
are getting the gold standard of protocols. I mean, it's something that you flounder around and wonder what you should do and what you should take, and they're just getting incredible advice. Great. I was very impressed.
Great. And we have an incredible offer to go along with this. Once you fill out the symptom survey, we'll let you know what it is. It's kind of a surprise, but it's a heck of an offer. Should I just tell them?
Yeah, I don't know.
The half hour free consultation.
Oh, yes.
Once you turn in your symptom survey, we're offering a 1/2 hour free consultation based on your survey results.
Phone consultation.
A phone consultation, free half hour.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a deal.
We put together a great protocol, too, on our website, customized it. It's called anti-aging. Mm-hmm. So once you become a patient or a member of our website, you can go in and look at the protocol called anti-aging. And it's a really cool protocol.
Well, I've worked on that.
Yeah,
I worked on that over the weekend.
Yeah.
We did over the weekend.
So you'll have access to that also. So don't forget to take advantage of that.
So what we want to do now, as we normally do with our weekly feature, Forbidden Secrets They Don't Want You to Know. These are the secrets they keep from you, the dumb things they tell you, and the really important things they know nothing about.
Here's a real comment/question from one of our listeners from the eastern part of the country. She wrote us last week, and she said, I shared with my doctor the other day that I'm taking Ageless Thyroid. Now, Ageless Thyroid is our product that you and I put together. an animal-based product, and to help support the thyroid and bring the HPA axis back together, the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. She said, I showed the doctor I'm taking Aegis Thyroid. I showed him the info on it and the ingredients. He said, none of this is indicated. Wait, you should do it. You have a man voice.
No, so none of this is indicated.
I love this word, indicated.
You're already taking thyroid in the form of the synthetic hormone levothyroxine. If you take this ageless thyroid, you'll have too much. It will affect your TSH level. Well, if he had read the ingredients, he would know there's no hormone in this.
No. But what he's saying is that you won't need my drugs.
That's what he's really saying.
Yeah. And so she comes back with, she wrote this. I suggested to him that if that happens, we could reduce the dosage of my levothyroxine.
Yeah, and he also didn't think that I should take Catalin, which is the multivitamin enzyme mineral
that has organ meats in it.
That has
also.
organ that we recommend.
But if he had read the ingredients, how could he say you shouldn't take this?
I know.
It's just food.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember.
Maybe it didn't have enough chemicals in it.
You have to remember these poor men and women do not get any training in nutrition.
Yeah, it's very sad.
No.
So he said he also, or she's still writing here. He also didn't think I should take Catalin.
Yes.
But I'm beginning to feel so much better already. I've only been on them for about 3 weeks, I think. I have more energy, better quality of sleep. I'm waking up around 7:30 a.m. instead of sleeping in until 10 a.m. or even noon.
Yes.
And her one question was, any suggestions or reassurances for me?
Yeah, listen to your body. Your body is telling you, yummy, give me more of this stuff.
I told her she needs a new doctor.
Yes.
That's what she needs. I love that. None of this is indicated. You don't need this because
you don't need food.
You
just take the drug.
You will not be dependent on this levothyroxine anymore.
All right, and then another thing, and those of you who are watching the webinar.
Yeah, we're going to skip past this one because we're going to run out of time. But this is another forbidden, the stupid things they tell you about vaccinations. And when you're doing the webinar, when you're watching it, you can just read this yourself. But we're going to skip over it for the podcast.
Yes, and one of the good things about the webinar is you can pause a screen and read it. You know, if you don't have to completely follow.
It's a really good one. We'll maybe do it next week, too.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to start off with the disclaimer. This webinar podcast is not intended to be a diversion away from the current system of disease management. It is our intention to offer a rational and very effective approach to aiding your body in its ability to rebuild and heal. If you are, go ahead.
No, if you're, well, I wanted to throw a little authoritarian voice in there.
The man.
If you are having a real crisis, get to the ER as soon as possible. Do not pass go. Do not call our office. Just go to the ER. When
it's crisis time and you're in a crisis, we recommend crisis care. We don't hesitate or debate this subject at all. If a crisis is present, go to the emergency room, call 911, or at least consult with your family doctor. This is nothing to play around with.
Nothing. What we're going to talk about are the dangers of vegan and vegetarian diets, largely coming from a pamphlet that's put out by the WestonAPrice.org organization, Dangers of Vegan and Vegetarian Diets.
Yeah, and we want to give them credit because they put together an incredible little pamphlet that, we could just read it. It's so good. But we're going to discuss it and really tear it apart. But we wanted to give them credit.
We're not going to tear apart the pamphlet.
No, we're going to tear apart everything to do with the information that's in there.
All right. So we're going to go through a series of myths and what the truths are regarding this. And you will notice that we do not cite what we're saying here in the sense of research. When we get through all the myths, we will have a page up here that has sources you can go to that this information was taken from so that you can read it for yourself.
Yeah, WestonAPrice is really careful about that.
They certainly are. And there's too many research articles that were pulled together for this presentation we're going to do that it would take up too much of the webinar.
Yes.
So we're just going to give you the mega source you can go to if you really want to follow up on it and read it for yourself.
And the highlights. Okay, myth number 1. All the hungry could be fed if grazing land were cultivated for crops. In other words, if the animals that were out there grazing, munching on the grass, munching on the herbs and the daisies, if all that was cultivated for crops, all the hungry could be fed.
Now the idea is all the hungry of the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the truth.
So the truth, of course, is that only about 11% of this planet at all can be farmed. And a percentage that cannot be increased, that 11%, without deforestation, without massive irrigation projects, lots of chemical fertilizers, and other things that destroy the ecology itself.
Because there's only about 25, this earth only has 25% land.
That's right.
And you're saying with the mountains.
The mountains, the polar regions, the desert regions, the wetlands regions, there's only so much of the land that's actually, that you can actually farm and turn into agricultural use. And the only way you could do more is to tear down more of the forests.
Yeah, that would not be good.
And so that's not true. All the hungry, you can't feed all the hungry by doing what this particular myth suggests.
Okay, we'll expand on this in just a minute. The next myth is meat consumption contributes to famine and depletes the earth's natural resources.
I don't know where these stories come from. But properly carried out through managed grazing, animal husbandry actually builds soil fertility, and it restores the deficiencies that have been created through grain production. 1 billion people on this planet depend exclusively on animal products for survival. So the idea of a small mixed farm is the answer for personal and planetary health. What does that mean? Instead of acres and acres and acres of monocrops, which nature never did, we do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, let me speaking of that, let me quote from Lear Keith, who's the foremost authority on vegetarianism and veganism, she being a vegan for 17 years until she had acquired degenerative bone disease.
Yeah, it devastated her spine.
It
17
maimed her.
years of veganism.
Yeah, it maimed her.
Just devastated the spine.
So she has done tremendous amount of research on this, but she said if we took 75% of the world's trashed rangeland, we could restore it from agriculture back to functioning prairies with their animal cohorts in under 15 years. We could further sequester all of the carbon that has been released since the beginning of the industrial age. So I find that a hopeful thing because, frankly, we just have to get out of the way. Nature will do the work for us. This planet wants to be grassland and forest. It does not want to be an agricultural monocrop.
Which destroys the soil.
Yeah, it's not natural. Lines and lines and lines of soybeans.
Lines and lines and lines of genetically modified corn, potatoes, sugar beets, wheat, where there once was fabulous grasslands of several feet thick topsoil. Now the topsoil is less than an inch thick. That's why they have to spray it to death with fertilizer to get these monocrops to grow.
Yeah, and as Dr. McBride's always saying, we need an animal / agricultural farmlands, small farmlands where the animals are going out on the plants and pooping and getting their compost everywhere, and that's the cycle of life.
That's what builds the soil.
Yep.
And provides through the next growing season healthy grass for them to continue to eat.
Yeah.
All right, another myth.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Livestock is a major source of greenhouse gas emissions.
Truly.
That was from a cow.
Cows farting.
Yes, cows farting. I mean, only a small percentage of atmospheric methane actually comes from, I love this, ruminant flatulence.
Yes.
A ruminant is an animal with 4 stomachs. Sheep, deer, cows.
That eats plants.
That eats plants, and they need the stomachs for all the bacteria in there to break these plants down, something we don't have, by the way. And the largest source is the burning of fossil fuels for electricity, heat, and transportation. A surprising source is emissions from wetlands, because in a lot of these wetlands that are kind of swampy, there's always these little bubbles coming up along, releasing methane into the atmosphere, far ahead of what cows do.
See, I've never even seen that.
Oh, I have.
Maybe on a
I grew up back east where there's a lot more wetlands.
Oh, that's true. I grew up in the desert.
That's right. There's not too many wetlands out here where the sand is blowing all the time. So raising animals on pasture is the most efficient way of pulling carbon from the atmosphere and returning it back to the soil.
And this is crazy. We've got a a little graphic here that says these things cause global warming. Stop them. And there's a picture of a cow farting. Is that a real thing? I mean, people really believe that's destroying.
Oh yeah, those
that's causing.
Those who want to
kill
stop
all the cows.
Those who want to stop the animal husbandry industry blame the buildup of methane in the atmosphere on cows. Yeah, I know. I know.
Funny story there, because our son never could really fart. I mean, you really shouldn't. I mean, if these cows weren't eating grain, these horrible genetically modified grains, they wouldn't be farting like this. No. But it was funny because all his friends could fart like crazy, and he never could.
Because we don't feed him sugar.
Yeah.
We don't feed him grains. We don't feed him sugar.
Okay, next myth. Beef production requires 2,500 gallons of water per pound of beef.
This figure is widely quoted by vegetarians without any supporting evidence. The beef industry estimates that a pound of beef requires 435 gallons of water, mostly for the grain production that's going to feed the animal. Pasture-raised beef requires only the water that the animal itself drinks, which works out to be about 30 gallons of water a day per pound of beef, which is about the amount you use in one shower.
Wow.
Now, it's far less than the amount that our son uses in one shower. But anyway, but by contrast, it takes 500 gallons of water to grow the wheat for 1 pound of bread. Where's all that? Why these huge amounts of water? Because of the irrigation.
Yeah. Those lines and lines and lines.
And those big wheels that are driving those huge irrigation pipes around in a full circle or a half or a quarter, whatever. And those big spray heads just spraying massive amounts of water all over those grain fields.
See, we should have music. This quiet little serene meditation music with a cow grazing in the grass. I mean, and farting. Probably aren't doing that if they've got.
So anyway, that's nuts.
Truly grazing.
If you know a vegetarian or you know a vegan, they're probably going to bring up the concept of the China study. And the next myth is the China study found that people who ate more plant foods were healthier. Well, what's said in the best-selling book, The China Study, does not match the findings of the actual China Cornell Oxford study, in which there was no correlation with more or less disease in people eating a lot of plant foods. So they found this one group over here in China that ate plant foods and they weren't all that sick. And there were these people over here that had more of a Western diet and they got sick. And there's no double-blind stuff going on here. There's just this correlate. Well, those people weren't as sick because they eat plants. These people over here are eating more meat than plants, and they're sick. They're not as healthy. So therefore, eat plants. That is not the results of double-blind intensive studies with special study groups and control groups. That's just watching these people who probably for thousands of years have had that genetic development to eat those plants, just like the Polynesians, who have a high carbohydrate diet, like 80% carbohydrates, mostly tubers and fruit, and about 20% animal protein.
Fish, yeah.
Fish and pork.
And eggs.
And you go up to the Inuit Eskimo, whose diet is 80% fat and about 20% protein, meat. They up there at the Arctic Circle, they don't have crops. They don't have gardens. And the lichens and the green that will grow in the short spring and summer are eaten by the reindeer to keep the reindeer fat, so these people can come along and eat the reindeer. So wherever people have been for a very long time, their bodies have genetically adapted to that dietary intake.
And they'll eat the adrenal gland and get the vitamin C.
For the vitamin C.
Mm-hmm. I cited a URL or the China study, fact or fallacy, and I did put that right on the slide. And it's an exhaustive study of this China study that said that it was not done well at all. So you can look that up if you have time. The next myth
Go ahead.
is vitamin B12 can be obtained from plant sources.
Well, the truth of the matter is, if you're going to get real vitamin B12, not the synthetic stuff they put in needles and inject into you, but the real vitamin B12 is only available from animal foods. And many vegans concede that those avoiding animal food should play it safe and take a B12 supplement. And B12, there's a little tiny mold that produces some B12, that there are some B12 supplements out there in the marketplace that say, no animals or animal-free or something like that. But it's a very inefficient form of B12. The only real form of B12 that will do the job comes from animals.
Yeah, we did a podcast on this, the B12, the MTHFR gene.
Okay, the next myth, our needs for vitamin D can be met by sunlight. Yeah, if it's the summertime and you work on the equator.
Yeah. We only make sufficient vitamin D from sunlight at midday during the summer months if you are living naked in the tropics. Traditional cultures...
That's not me.
Yeah. Well, the naked part.
I don't even... I only shower in the dark.
Yeah, traditional cultures obtain this essential nutrient, vitamin D, year-round by eating vitamin D-rich animal foods.
Yes, primarily cod liver oil.
Yeah. The next myth is the body's need for vitamin A can be met entirely from plant food.
The body will convert carotenes from plants into true vitamin A, but you do not get vitamin A in carrots.
But it does it very poorly.
Very poorly.
Most people can't do this sufficiently or well, and some can't do it at all, especially little children.
Yeah. So when someone tells you, well, you got to eat carrots to get your vitamin A, that's not true.
It's a precursor. It's not even
the
vitamin
carotenes that are in carrots, your body will convert that into vitamin A, but it takes a lot of time and energy to do that. Whereas in animal products, the vitamin A is there ready to go right now, especially liver.
Yeah, it's like pre-digested. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
The next myth is vegetarians live longer, and I have a picture of a slide here, which I show when I'm with a patient one-on-one. And on the left is a woman that's 51 years old, and on the right is a woman that's 51 years old. The one on the left has been a lifelong vegan, and she looks about 20 years older than the one on the right.
The one on the left is 51?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no way. That's a
yeah.
misprint.
And that's actually kind of a good picture of her. I was looking her up. I spent way too much time looking up on the internet because I couldn't believe she looked that bad. And there's much worse pictures of her. But anyway, the lady on the right, she's a cook. She's a famous cook in England. In fact, most of the websites were in German and all kinds of things. But she eats copious amounts of fat and protein. And
meat, butter, chocolate, desserts, all washed down with copious amounts of wine.
That's what it says.
Yes. So do vegetarians live longer? Some do, some don't. I mean, the very health-conscious vegetarians, and I want to say this right now, you can be healthy and be a vegetarian, but it's not easy.
But only if you eat pastured dairy, eggs, and dairy. That's the only way, truly, don't you think?
Right. And they may well live longer than omnivores that are eating prepackaged processed foods because they're going to be malnourished anyway.
Yeah, the Skittles and the Doritos and the McDonald's. And
but there are analyses.
A vegetarian would be much healthier than people that eat.
Yeah, that ate grass-pastured butter and dairy.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's analyses out there of studies on vegetarianism that show that vegetarians have a greater all-cause death rate and even a greater death rate from heart disease than an omnivore who's careful to eat clean meat, fish, dairy, and eggs, and organic vegetables.
Yeah. We did a whole podcast on the heart.
Yes.
Just
recently.
Yeah, just recently.
So another myth, vegetarianism protects against cancer. Well, the truth, the science on this is inconsistent and contradictory at best. Vegetarians are particularly prone to cancers of the nervous system and the reproductive organs.
Why?
Why? Because they're not getting the fats. They're not getting the saturated animal fats that your nervous system depends upon. The myelin sheath that surrounds many of the nerve fibers in the body, not all of them, but many of them, is dense cholesterol-rich animal saturated fat.
Yeah, and your endocrine glands, all your hormone glands, that's what they live off of.
Extremely fatty organs.
Very, very fat.
And then soy, which is a staple of many vegetarian diets, can contribute to and accelerate the growth of some cancers, particularly breast cancer.
Yeah, and soy is a goitrogen, and it inhibits the thyroid gland, so everything will be off.
Yes.
I mean, PMS City. I mean, that's a rough one. It's soy, unless you ferment. That's the only way the Chinese ever ate soy was fermented soy.
Ferment it.
But we just, the only reason it's a health food is because soy can't be killed. That plant is so strong and hardy, you can run over it. You can
And now that they have
it.
soy-ready Roundup.
Yeah. And so they just made it super health. This is a health food, and it's so not. Okay, the next myth is eating meat causes heart disease.
Well, what we know for sure is that vegetarians have as much atherosclerosis as meat eaters and higher levels of homocysteine.
Yeah.
Heart disease is associated with the consumption of trans fats, refined vegetable oils, and sugar, all of which come from plants. And I have, and Mary have together, we have done several podcasts on the heart, and we go into this in much greater detail.
Yeah, inflammation, everything. The C-reactive proteins are much higher in vegetarians. That's just showing massive chronic systemic inflammation through the entire body.
Yep.
So that
which is not coming from meat.
That is a total myth.
It's coming from vegetable oil and sugar.
I think that's what killed Robin Williams after his heart surgery, is they put him on a fat-free, no-salt diet, which unbelievable. And then he was, on also some, depression drugs too, and the combination, and he had Parkinson's. They found out.
Yeah.
And that's
which I'm not surprised with a no-fat diet.
Directly attributed to not having fat in your diet.
Okay, the next one, meat eating causes osteoporosis. I have patients who will tell me this, patients that I start taking care of. Well, I'd stay away from meat because it eats up my bones.
My goodness.
And I just, I don't know whether to
You were telling me about a patient you had a week ago, and she said she ate mostly bread?
Yeah, mostly grains. She wants to stay away from meat because she doesn't want cancer or osteoporosis.
Wow.
So she eats mostly grains. And,
you were telling me her bones.
I'm going to be 66 in another week or so. And I've been doing this for a long time. And, 2-3 decades ago, I was a real pioneer and a missionary, and I'm going to tell them about this and tell them about that. And now I just, for Pete's sake, I took care of the reasons why she came to me. I made some suggestions of podcasts that she should listen to that would help her better understand that meat eating does not cause osteoporosis. It's the grains, because I showed her on her x-ray. Your bones are disappearing.
Yeah,
and if you're
you
not
said
eating,
they look like they had holes.
Oh, yeah, osteoporotic breakdown. You could see the moth-eaten holes of her bones on the x-ray.
Awful.
And I said, you have osteoporosis, and you're not eating meat. You're eating grains. How do you account for your theory? I didn't say it like that, but I wanted to.
You grabbed her by the throat and shook her?
I just get so frustrated, Mary.
Yanked her around, gave her another misalignment.
On the other
Made
side.
more money, yeah.
Yeah, meat eaters do not have more osteoporosis than vegetarians. Nutrients required for healthy bones like vitamin D, collagen, and calcium are either better absorbed or exclusively found in animal foods.
Wow.
Can you imagine a vegetarian tiger?
Wow. Okay, myth. I don't know what number this is, but the human body is not designed for meat consumption.
Yeah, this is another one where I just shake my head and I said, didn't you ever take a class in
No,
human
they
anatomy?
didn't, Jack. They didn't. They were not taught this.
Humans are equipped with a mixed feeders, teeth, and digestive system. You have teeth for ripping and tearing. Mm-hmm. You have teeth for grinding. And the intestinal tract of a human being is more like that of a dog than it is a sheep. Animals that live on plant foods do not manufacture hydrochloric acid. Cows with their 4 stomachs, they don't manufacture hydrochloric acid because they don't eat meat.
Right.
Humans have a stomach that manufactures hydrochloric acid. That hydrochloric acid is not there to break down fats from fatty vegetables. It's not there to break down carbohydrates from all vegetables and fruit. It's there to break down dense protein structures.
Yeah, the cows and the ruminants will have a bunch of stomachs, and then you were explaining to me earlier how horses have huge stomachs.
Yeah, a horse is not a ruminant.
Yeah, right. But the food just sits there and ferments.
Yeah, they have these big, huge stomachs, and as long as they eat the right stuff, that stuff's going to sit in there, and the bacteria in that stomach, because there's going to be a lot of bacteria. Why?
Because there's no acid.
Because there's no acid.
Yes.
And so these bacteria are breaking down these dense amounts of carbohydrate, mostly grass, alfalfa, these kinds of things.
But humans have teeny stomachs.
But we have a very small stomach. Your stomach isn't a whole lot bigger than your fist.
Well, some of us have small stomachs, but
Yes, that's true.
But we do, and we have to have massive amounts of hydrochloric acid in there.
To break down the dense animal protein
our
that we're
great big-
designed to eat.
That's
this
right.
just blows
For
me
our
away.
great big brains and our little teeny stomachs, it's just full of acid to break down meat.
And then there's a crazy evil stepsister myth of that one is the one that says meat putrefies in the gut.
That's hilarious.
As soon as that meat has been sitting in your stomach with massive amounts of hydrochloric acid, it's turned into a liquid.
Mm-hmm.
And that liquid does not putrefy in the stomach. It goes through the stomach faster than the fiber of vegetables and fruit do.
Yeah.
Not the stomach, I mean the intestinal system.
Well, it breaks it down into peptides. And then, well, let's just start at the beginning of this. The human digestive system is perfectly designed to digest meat, starting with the stomach that produces hydrochloric acid for digesting meat proteins. Enzymes in the small intestine further break down the protein/peptides coming from the stomach into amino acids, which the body then absorbs through the gut wall.
And it does it very efficiently, and it does it very quickly.
And
as long as you don't overeat and you don't mix a bunch of processed carbohydrates with the meat, you're not going to have gas, bloating, indigestion, acid reflux.
If the microbes are correct or are right in the right portions, the right balance, it's a beautiful orchestra, this
Yes.
digestion. You've
I
got
like that orchestra.
the biggest disassembly line in the world. But if something goes wrong, too much candida, some other horrible imbalance in your microbiome, your digestion can just turn you inside out. I
Yes, it
mean,
can.
bloating and gas, and then eventually, and infections and inflammation, ulcers, and then just last week, another patient's husband just got diagnosed with colon cancer.
Yeah.
He hasn't seen us, but it's our patient, and
His wife is our patient.
His wife is our patient.
Okay,
Very
next
sad.
myth. Eating animal flesh causes violent, aggressive behavior in humans.
Only in men. I have
Give
a
me
picture
that.
of a man in jail.
Don't let him eat that hamburger. He'll go kill somebody. There is no science to support that claim. However, we do know that vegetarian diets lower serum cholesterol. So people say, that's a wonderful thing, because when I went vegetarian, my cholesterol dropped. So did my emotional
Yeah,
life.
but I wonder if their LDL dropped truly.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know, but this study doesn't get into that. But the important thing is there is no connection between cholesterol and heart disease.
None.
There is none.
No, it's the can you say that word?
Homocysteine.
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 The homocysteine.
And C-reactive
the C-reactive
protein.
proteins that truly indicates heart disease.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so the studies are just absolutely legion now.
Yeah. Well, low cholesterol has been associated with violent and antisocial behavior in humans, monkeys, and dogs. And Dr. McBride talks about this, a study that found people in prison had much lower cholesterol.
Yes.
Because they were probably eating crap food. Crap
Yeah, well,
food.
they're eating institutional food.
Well, but I mean, even before they
Even
went
before
to
that, what are
jail.
they eating?
Yeah, just horrible food.
Yes.
So, the next myth is a vegetarian diet is safe for children. This is a bad myth. It is not true.
Now, some children can grow well on a vegetarian diet if it's rich in dairy products from pastured cows and eggs from pastured chickens.
Yeah, that's critical.
And we're talking about raw dairy here, not pasteurized dairy.
Yeah.
The children who've been brought up on vegan diets have poorer bones, reduced mental capacity compared to children that are brought up on diets containing animal foods. Rampant tooth decay in baby teeth is common among children born to vegan mothers, because as that baby is developing in the mother, and that mother's a vegan, and she's not having adequate amounts of vitamin A, vitamin D, which is absolutely essential for calcium absorption. Her blood isn't going to have enough calcium to feed and build the bones and the teeth of her developing baby.
Yeah.
So when I see parents who are raising their children as vegans, I have to turn and run the other direction.
Well, Natalie
I
Portman.
can't
Natalie
handle it.
Portman is a vegan, and when she was pregnant, which just scares me to death, but when she was pregnant, she said, "Well, I did cheat a little bit. I let myself eat foods that had dairy products in them, like cakes and cookies that had eggs.
She didn't say
that eggs and butter, probably, but
She really said that.
because she doesn't eat those, she won't eat anything that even has eggs in it. I remember Steve Jobs spitting out a bowl of soup because somebody said it had butter in it. Yeah, how long did he last? But she's carrying a child. At least Steve Jobs didn't produce a child.
To me, that is child
abuse.
abuse.
Yeah, it's terrible. So the only food she ate with dairy and eggs were crap food, cakes and cookies. So I don't know. I kind of have to stay away from looking at her child because I'm just worried. The next myth, vegetarians are not involved in animal killing.
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons why some people want to be vegetarians, why some people are vegans, because they don't want an animal to have to die for them to live.
Well, that's
big animals.
Yeah, they can kill little
The animals they can see. The animals that they can't see are killed all the time.
Horton Hears a Who.
I'm going to quote here from Lear Keith, the author of...
This was the main reason Lear Keith became a vegan. A vegan, yeah. Because she didn't want to kill
an animal to die so she could live.
Yes,
she didn't
and she
want
was
that.
passionate. She's such an activist, and she was passionate about this, and she just rah for years and years and years, and then of course she got the degenerative bone disease. So go ahead and read.
Well, I'm going to quote from her book. What do plants eat? They eat dead animals. That's the problem. For me, that was a horrifying realization. You want to be an organic gardener, of course. So you keep reading, feed the soil, feed the soil, feed the soil. All right? Well, what does the soil want to eat? Well, it wants manure, and it wants urine, and it wants blood meal, and it wants bone meal. And I could not face that. I wanted my garden to be pure and death-free. It didn't matter what I wanted. Plants wanted those things, and they needed those things to grow. Life is literally a process of one creature eating another, whether it's bacteria breaking down plants or animals, or plants strangling each other, or animals going for the throat, or viruses attacking animals. All of nature is a conjugation of the verb to eat. I think that's a brilliant statement, in the words of William Ralph Ing. But that's Lear Keith from the Myth of Vegetarianism. The truth is, about 300 animals per acre are killed for the production of grain.
Wow.
When they want to turn pasture animal land into
rows and rows
they have
and rows
about
of
300 animals per acre when this happens.
Wow.
Those animals have to be killed to produce the product for that grain, and only one animal per acre is killed for the production of beef. When you figure out how much beef is produced, how many animals there and how many acres there are, it works out to one animal per acre. So and then people are using vegans and vegetarians are using animal products all the time that they're not aware of.
Yeah.
They only don't want to eat them. They don't realize that that animal byproducts are involved in sensitive instruments in airplanes, cars, string instruments, of course. Talking on the phone, taking part in a lot of other ordinary activities rely on animal products that are involved in various aspects of our communication, computers, things like this. There's little tiny things in there that are derived from animal parts that had to die for that to happen.
Yeah, cycle of life.
Yeah.
And the next myth is animal products are unhealthy because they contain numerous harmful toxins.
All food products contain toxins if they've been raised with pesticides and herbicides. If you bring home vegetables and fruit to your family from the grocery store that do not have organic stamped on that food, you are bringing home toxic foods.
Yeah.
And it's important to choose animal and plant foods that have been raised without toxic chemical inputs, which is the whole idea behind organic. And so the nutrients we get from animal foods like vitamins A and B12, sulfur and zinc actually help the body detoxify. The sulfur and the zinc are involved in phase 1, phase 2 of liver detox.
Yeah, I'm always saying if you can rebuild your liver and your kidneys and your colon and with good fat and protein, you don't need to cleanse.
Yeah.
This cleansing fat, I mean, that lady I showed you, the two 51-year-old ladies,
Yeah.
the one that's the vegan,
Yeah.
she advocates tons of cleansing. She says you're a big toxic dump and you need to cleanse. And,
Wow.
look at her. Because
So-
she's thin, people think that and that's okay.
As I said there at the beginning, we don't cite the sources for every one of these. So we have a slide that's up there right now for studies cited and further information. There's 3 places here. Again, they all go back to Weston A. Price because that's who published this pamphlet. But if you go to these, I'll leave it here for a second. Or,
Okay.
if you're listening to this webinar, you just put it on pause long enough to go to your computer and start researching these sources, and you'll find where we got this information.
Okay, that's important. But we're also going to show you 3 books, or is it 4 books, that we just love. This is the tip of the tip, The Vegetarian Myth by Lierre Keith. And there's a commentary on this book. It says, this book is by far one of the most powerful and important books I have ever read in my entire life. It is my opinion that it should be required reading for everyone before they're allowed to graduate from high school. Everyone who eats food needs to read this book.
Written by a former vegan.
Yeah, vegan, not vegetarian, vegan.
Vegan.
So, it's, she's got a little clout there. We're taught nothing in our schools. I have to tell you real quick, I was in an office the other day, and the reception was canceling somebody's appointment. She was on the phone, and he said that he had the flu shot the day before, and so he was very, very sick. And he couldn't come in for the appointment. She said, I overheard her tell him, oh, dear, yeah, that's because they put the virus of the flu in there and the antibodies.
Well,
I mean,
they'll tell you that the flu virus, of course, is dead. So you can't get sick from the flu virus.
well, we're so woefully
but the antibodies?
Well, I don't even want to say it out loud because it's just so, you only build antibodies inside of your body, but for the virus, once it's in there, I hate to even have to explain that. But I do, because that's our poor, poor school system.
The next book,
I think we're kept from this information.
Oh, we are kept from this
purposely.
by the food industries.
So
the food industries control medical curriculum to a large degree in the medical schools.
They don't know this, but but we don't know it either. So read this Vegetarian Myth. I promise you, it is like poetry.
Oh, it is.
It is so beautifully
She could be
written.
writing about rebuilding big block Chrysler engines, and you still could not put the book down.
Yeah, it's a wonderful
because of her
book.
writing technique.
Yeah, she deserves a lot of credit for this. The next one is, of course, the standard Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. A whole worldwide organization has been founded with this book.
Absolutely. He was a dentist about 100 years ago, and dentists back then were really the nutritionists of the day, because when they saw the condition of teeth, they knew the condition of the rest of the body and would prescribe accordingly, mostly nutritional additives.
Mm-hmm.
But he set out on a world tour because he wanted to find out what people ate that gave them good, healthy bodies. And he researched 14 different groups: islanders, Arctic people, high alpine people in Europe. And of these 14 groups he studied that had no teeth cavities, perfect dental arches, perfectly healthy teeth, good strong facial bones, good strong backs. One thing that was consistent with all 14 groups, they had diets high in saturated fat, mostly animal sourced.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah. Islanders, of course, came from coconut, saturated fat in coconut. And he made this comment. He says, "As yet, I have not found a single group of primitive racial stock which was building and maintaining excellent bodies by living entirely on plant foods."
Okay.
And this wasn't one trip around the world. He made several trips.
Yeah.
And he never found a group that ate their diet primarily from plants that had healthy bodies.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good book. And the next one is called Deep Nutrition by Catherine Shanahan, MD, and her husband, Luke Shanahan. And it's called the subtitle is Why Your Genes Need Traditional Foods. About 70% of her diet is fat. And the cool thing is she's a geneticist, and her husband was also a geneticist. And they got married, and she went on to become an MD, and he went on to become a cook.
Yes, a chef.
A chef.
Yeah.
So this is a wonderful combination of how to eat correctly with recipes and everything in it. She has this wonderful table that you can see if you're watching the webinar that I show to all my patients. And she's explaining the nutrition in food, and she has a list of a whole bunch of vitamins, vitamin A, B, C, and all these different things. And then she has, in the next 3 columns, the amount of nutrition in an apple, in a liver, and in a broccoli. And for instance, vitamin A has about 7 international units of vitamin A in an apple. But it doesn't really have the vitamin A, as we've already discussed. It only has the precursor to vitamin A. But it only has 7 international units. A liver has 10,602. And that's real vitamin A. And then a broccoli has only 261, but still significantly more than an apple.
Right.
So you were explaining earlier how much broccoli you have to eat.
You'd have to have 200 grams of broccoli to equal the amount of vitamin A in 4 ounces of liver.
Yeah, and the graph goes on and on. You can get her book. I would highly suggest. It's a fun book to read. She's super funny. And it's called Deep Nutrition, and there's lots of recipes in there. The next book is...
I think the last one.
Okay, the last one is Primal Body, Primal Mind, and this is by Nora Gadatis, and it's Beyond the Paleo Diet for Total Health and a Longer Life. And there's an immunologist that...
Bill Giles. He has his master's in science as an immunobiology specialist.
He said, I would like to congratulate you on your book, Primal Body, Primal Mind. It is the first book I've read that really starts to understand the effects of foods to which humans are not genetically adapted.
Yeah. So what about eating a diet of candy bars, ice cream, sodium nitrite-laden hot dogs, potato chips?
Genetically modified
We
corn.
are not genetically oriented and created and designed to eat those kinds of foods. What happens to us when we do? That's in Primal Body.
Well,
Primal Mind.
we all know that about those types of foods, but she goes into plants. She says plants were not found in ancient men's stools.
Yes.
Ever.
Wherever
She said
they find mummified, whenever they find mummies, they don't just, count the teeth and look at what jewelry they were wearing. They do autopsies on these things.
Yeah.
And when they get the fecal matter in the colon, there's no residue of plant in there whatsoever.
She said the only time they ever found plants in the stools was during an ice age, where they just ate anything they could find to eat.
So we're going to quickly go through this next section. Those were the myths and the truths we offer. But there's nutrient deficiencies that come from vegan and vegetarian diets, and we want to go through those. We can go through them quickly because there's certain vital nutrients that occur only in animal foods, and these nutrients are particularly important for fetal development and for growing children, which is why in some of these studies of people that Dr. Price did, he found out the people who had the absolute best diet in all of these different 14 groups were women who were pregnant. the society, the village, the family made sure that pregnant woman had the absolute best food she could possibly eat. Why? She had a baby developing inside
And probably
of her.
before they got pregnant, too.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful prenatal protocol on our website that
Yes.
if you know anybody that's pregnant, they ought to have that. There's a cute comic on this slide. There's two guys standing there in a grocery store, and the one said, the ingredients are listed in order of importance. And the next guy says, what comes after profit?
Yeah, right. Remember, the food industry exists for the food industry. The food industry does not exist to give you strong, healthy bodies 12 ways. It exists for bottom line profits
That's the
in
most
the food
important
industry.
thing on there, profit.
So let's go
Okay,
through
we're
these.
going to go through the nutrients you will probably be missing if you are a vegetarian or a vegan,
Unless you're, well, especially a vegan.
especially a vegan.
But a vegetarian who is eating a lot of raw dairy and raw and grass-pastured eggs can avoid some of these problems.
One of the first ones is vitamin A. You will not get this as a vegan. It's critical for healthy eyes, skin, bones, hormone production, and immune function. It plays a leading role in the formation of the fetus and the prevention of birth defects. We found this out in the 1970s, and we started supplementing with all kinds of synthetic vitamin A, and that caused even more birth defects.
Exactly.
But not the real vitamin A from food. Healthy populations consume amounts of vitamin A in the ranges of 20,000 to 30,000 IU vitamin A units per day.
The best source is cod liver oil, liver, butter, egg yolks from grass-fed animals.
And if you go back to Dr. Shanahan's table of vitamin A, of course, liver is the best one.
Another one is vitamin D, because you can only get vitamin A and vitamin D, true vitamin A, true vitamin D from animal sources, which is, and then, of course, vitamin D, it's essential for growth, healthy bones, protection against tetany, which is muscle contractions, convulsions, heart failure in newborns, protection against type 1 diabetes, protection against cancer, heart disease,
Just that.
high blood pressure, obesity, arthritis, and multiple sclerosis. Vitamin D is necessary for the function of the body's feel-good chemicals, and it protects against depression.
Ooh.
And the best sources? Cod
Cod
liver
liver.
oil, lard,
Lard.
and other pork products, shrimp, oily fish, and egg yolks from the grass-fed poultry.
And you can supplement with Cannabis D or cod liver oil if you can't get these in your diet. The next one is
Vitamin K2. We all hear about vitamin K because we need that for blood coagulation. Blood won't clot without vitamin K. But a lot of people have never heard of K2.
Yeah.
Now, that's not the mountain in the Himalayas I'm talking about.
Although that would be a nice place.
I'm talking about vitamin K2, which is
help.
critical for ensuring that calcium is put into the hard tissues, the bones and the teeth, and protection of the soft tissues, such as arteries, kidneys, from calcification. Because when you have a buildup of calcium in the bloodstream, calcium deposits can take place in the arteries of the bloodstream, and it can also lead to calcification of the kidney.
So kidney stones,
Definitely kidney
glaucoma.
stones. But with K2, that is the transport mechanism to get the calcium into the bones. And vitamin K2 is required for synthesis of brain cells, for reproduction, and it occurs in certain fermented plant foods like natto.
But who wants to eat natto?
Well, I've heard people have tried natto, and they tried it once, and they were done with it.
And that was it. It's a traditional Japanese food made from soybeans, fermented soybeans, mind you, with certain bacteria in it, Bacillus subtilis. Some eat it as a breakfast food. It's served with soy sauce, karashi, mustard, and Japanese bunching onions. Boy, doesn't that sound like a wonderful breakfast?
I think I would rather have chicken livers, grass-pastured butter, and full-fat aged cheese.
That's the best sources in the Western diet.
Yes.
Poultry liver, like a chicken liver,
Chicken livers.
chicken pate, grass-pastured butter, and that's the one we love the most, and full-fat cheeses.
Then there's vitamin B12, which is needed for red blood cell production, protection from toxins, and for mental health.
This is huge.
Yeah, because B12 deficiencies can lead to paranoia, obsessive-compulsive disorder, tendency to irrational anger and dementia, and also pernicious anemia. There are people who get weekly B12 shots because of pernicious anemia, the inability to produce the right healthy kind of red blood cells. And all animal foods provide B12, but liver is always the best source because there is no B12 in plant foods. There simply isn't.
Podcast 85, we go into this in depth on the MTHFR gene.
Vitamin B6. It's involved in brain function, production of histamine, the storage of carbohydrate as glycogen in the liver and muscles, and the synthesis of many important compounds. We use plant form B6 much less effectively than the animal form. And the best sources are muscle meats, seafood, organ meats, raw milk.
Yeah.
See, there's B6 in wheat, but not very much, and it's not as easily accessible in our bodies. Remember, the animals are designed to eat the plant kingdom. We eat the animals because what was in the plant kingdom is concentrated in the animal.
It's even better.
Yeah, yes.
So another nutrient you might be deficient in if you are a vegan is zinc.
It's a cofactor in hundreds of enzymes, over 300 enzymes
Yeah.
that are needed for hormone receptors, the production of hormones such as insulin. It's required for cell replication, for skin integrity, for your immune system, digestion, glucose tolerance, which is sugar handling. It helps to give you a higher metabolic rate for weight consideration, and your sense of taste is zinc dependent. And it's very difficult to absorb zinc from a plant food. The best sources are red meat and shellfish.
And liver.
Again, liver.
You'll be deficient in iron if you're a vegan, typically. Of course, iron's needed for red blood cells and energy and immunity. And, of course, the best way to get iron is from liver and red meat.
Because the iron is wrapped up in a protein structure that your body, there's the iron I'm looking for. But what a lot of vegans will do is ferrous sulfate or other forms of mineral sources of iron that leads to terrible constipation and poor iron absorption in the body.
Well, the terrible thing is if you have iron-loving bacteria inside of you.
Oh, that's even
and
worse.
And then because you're anemic, because it's eating the iron, your doctor, of course, will immediately give you iron pills, and it just feeds the iron-loving bacteria. Yes. So you've got to get your gut in shape. But the iron from Standard Process is not the type that constipates you.
No, it's wrapped up in food.
Yeah, it is food. It's an amazing product, and we don't use it much because by the time we get a gut fixed, the iron production, the anemia goes away.
You're talking about Farrow food.
Yes, okay. I'm talking about Farrow food.
Okay.
I've got a picture of it here on the webinar. But Farrow food is the product that we use. But make sure before you use any type of iron product that your gut is in shape, or you'll just be feeding the bad microbes in your gut.
Another one is calcium. Raw dairy foods, just absolutely the best source of usable calcium in Western cultures. There's a lot of calcium supplements out there that are just ground up limestone, ground up rocks.
Not good.
And your body can't do much with that.
The next one, you'll be deficient is EPA and DHA. It's critical for brain function and for your endocrine system. And the best sources are cod liver oil, organ meats, and seafood. Then arachidonic acid.
Yeah, the best source of arachidonic acid is obviously animal products, but your liver will make arachidonic acid out of EPA and DHA, out of essential or fatty acids. Your body can produce arachidonic. It's very difficult to get arachidonic anywhere outside of an animal source. And it's absolutely critical for healthy cell-to-cell junctures. The way your skin cells join surfaces with one another and holds them together so that you can stretch it, you can sunburn it, you can cut it, you can massage it.
And you don't dissolve in the bathtub.
And you don't dissolve in the bathtub because those arachidonic acid-dependent collagen fibers that knit those cells together is so vital for strong, healthy skin. Best sources, animal fats and organ meats.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot in GAPS when you come in for a session.
And then amino acids in general. I mean, in principle, your body can, most of the amino acids you need, your body can make taurine, carnitine, creatine, carnosine, but production is difficult in animals and a lot infants.
In infants.
And in many adults. Thank you for correcting me.
Especially sick adults.
These amino acids are critical for many functions in the body, including energy and brain function. Where's the best source we're animals. Mm-hmm. We're not plants. Mm-hmm. There are plants that have amino acids in them because these plants have protein structures in them that are dependent upon amino acid availability. But we're not a plant. And the amino acids that are in plants are so spread out, so thin, that you have to do like cows do. eat all day long
Like vegans
to get enough
do.
of these amino acids so that they can build big, strong, meaty bones.
And when we eat all day long, we do not create. We don't have time to
We
create.
haven't got time to eat all
and
day
we're
long.
and we're creators.
So best sources, meat, seafood, and organ meats. Again, we're animals. We get our amino acids from animals. And then cholesterol.
Cholesterol's
Only
critical.
animal foods produce cholesterol. And cholesterol, there's
Provide
50
cholesterol.
hormones involved with our emotional lives that are dependent upon sufficient levels of cholesterol.
Infants and millions of people with genetic defects cannot make the cholesterol they need for growth, brain function, and mental health.
So they have to go to animal sources for that cholesterol. So
Okay.
let's kind of recap here. Here's a cute little
If
picture.
we eat like the food pyramid, the USDA suggested food pyramid, we end up looking like the food pyramid. Great big bottoms, teeny tiny brains. If we ate mostly breads and grains, which we really exhaustively went over in podcast number 60, which are at the bottom of the USDA approved food pyramid recommendations, they only recommend a tiny portion of meat and fats and no organ meat at all. So again, refer to Dr. Shanahan's statement of, without these most nutrient-dense organ foods, it's nearly impossible to get adequate vitamins and minerals. So here is the USDA food pyramid for those of you that are watching the webinar.
The 1992 version.
Yeah, and it's just gotten worse since then. But
Look at that, 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta. You know what you're going to look like if you have 11 servings of that a day?
yeah, they recommend pasta. They recommend it. 6 to 11 servings. The very, very tippy top is fats, oils, and sweets. Well, I'm glad they tell you to just use sparingly sweets.
Yes, but not fats and
But
oils.
not fats and oils. It's just completely flipped upside down, although I wouldn't flip the sugar upside down. But even still, it's very, very sad what it has. I also put in a vegan food guide, and this is an actual daily plan for healthy eating for vegans. And of course, the most important thing they say to eat is grains, tons and tons of grains, and then in vegetable, and grains are the most important. I always thought it was vegetables, but no, it's
No, it's grains.
And then vegetables and fruits are next. And then they said to eat fortified soy milk and alternatives. And then beans and beans alternatives. And then other essential sources. Essential, they said, at the very tippy top
Essential.
of this pyramid, they say to eat omega-3 fatty acids. I don't know where from. They've got supplements. They've got pictures of supplements up there because they don't have any food up there.
Well, they're going to be talking about flaxseed oil
Yeah.
to get your omega-3
and
fatty
then they
acids.
say to supplement with B12 and vitamin D. Because you can't get that
you can
pasta.
get synthetic vitamin B12. You can get synthetic vitamin D3. But if you want the stuff that really makes a difference in your body, you have to get the real McCoy, and it comes from animal sources.
And speaking of animal sources, Jack and I have made an animal-based nutritional product called Long Life Energy Enzymes. Real quickly, we had a testimonial just a couple days ago, a 58-year-old woman with Alzheimer's, 58, mind
Yes.
you, that's just a few years older than I am, to the point she can no longer drive and her short-term memory is so reduced she cannot follow through with a short conversation. Was driven to her hairdresser's a month ago where she did not want to get out of the car because she didn't know where she was or why she was there. About 2 to 3 weeks later, after taking 6 Lee enzymes twice a day, her husband drove her to the salon. She knew exactly where she was and what was going on and jumped out of the car in anticipation of getting her hair done.
Nothing
Now
else
that's
was changed
real
in her
food.
diet.
Nothing else was changed in her diet or anything, medications or anything, and her brain got so much better.
And they're animal-based enzymes because we're animals. We're not plants.
Yeah, they're enzymes, and we have a whole we have 2 or 3 podcasts on this, but it's one of the most beautiful supplements you could take for your body.
Yes.
Because enzymes are the spark of life. And then we also produce another animal-based nutritional product called Ageless Thyroid. This is my favorite one. I reiterated the testimonial we had at the beginning of the podcast about the lady that felt so much better. She says, I've been taking them for 3 weeks. I have a more energy, better quality of sleep, and I'm waking up at 7:30 a.m. instead of 10 or even noon.
Yeah.
So that's really wonderful. And then I have the list of ingredients on the Ageless Thyroid, which is stunning. And all kinds of desiccated hypothalamus, desiccated pituitary, desiccated adrenal, desiccated thyroid in it. Pure animal product. It's a beautiful product. So I want to remind you that to get a personalized supplement protocol for the things that you need, go to our website, forbiddendoctor.com, get the free survey, and now we're giving away a free 30-minute phone consult, which is just amazing. We're doing this, and I don't know how long we'll do this, but for now, do that. A new protocol we put on our website called Anti-Aging. You might want to go there and check that out, but you do have to do the survey if you're not a patient already. And we have to read the disclaimer. Go ahead, Jack.
The statements above made about specific products have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided and any information contained on or in any product label or packaging or this webinar is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional.
And along with this disclaimer, we also recommend you don't run with scissors, don't put your hand into a burning fire, and don't argue with your mother. And always, always remember, buy low, sell high.
There we go.
Okay.
That'll do it.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
All right, we'll see you next week.